Hi there, Tiffny Rhodius here from the Guyana Revenue Authority. This week, we'll tell you the do's and don'ts when applying for tax exemptions, what you need to know when applying for tax exemptions as a local manufacturer and working in the fisheries sector, and how you can claim a refund if you've paid VAT for a zero-rated or tax-exempt item. These and more this week on Focus on GRA.
School is out and it's time to start buying those school supplies for your children. Here's how GRA can help. Textbooks, coloring books, graph books, dictionaries, pencils, erasers, crayons, lunch kits, scientific calculators, geometry sets, and many more essential school supplies are zero-rated for VAT. School uniform garments for shirts, pants, skirts, kimonos, and dresses are also zero-rated for VAT. So what are you waiting for? Get to shopping. GRA, your partner in development.
Businesses and individuals could pay little to no taxes if they qualify for tax exemptions. We've invited the experts in the GRA's Customs and Tax Exemptions Unit to explain how eligible individuals and businesses can apply for tax exemptions at the GRA.
While the administration of the country's tax laws is geared towards revenue collection, it also provides for the Revenue Authority to approve concessions for categories of taxpayers who satisfy certain stipulations. Manufacturers, large-scale miners and forestry operators, remigrants and diplomats are some of the category of taxpayers eligible for non-payment of tax either wholly or partially on imports, based on certain conditions. The overall aim is to create an encouraging environment for the sustainability and growth of operations for the benefit of the economy. The Revenue Authority's Tax Exemptions Processing and Verification Unit processes applications for tax exemptions based on the provisions set out in the Customs Act, the Excise Tax Act, and the Value-Added Tax Act. Notwithstanding, the unit can also deny applications which fail to meet certain requirements.
I'm joined via telephone by Mr. Gavin Lowe, a Deputy Commissioner in Customs, and he was also a Senior Manager in the GRA's Tax Exemptions Processing and Verification Unit. Mr. Lowe, tell us, how does one begin the process of applying for tax exemptions?
The person must prepare a letter to the Commissioner General explaining briefly what their application is all about. Some of the key contents in the letter which you must know is that you must attach your invoice number, the invoice number for the goods you intend to apply for exemptions, and you must put a proper description of the goods. For every application, you must have the TIN of the applicant. That's the most important feature in the application for exemption. Without a TIN, there is nothing we can do at GRA. The other important things to note is that you must place your email address and telephone number. That is for the broker. You can also put the email contact and telephone contact for the applicant. Because if there is a query, even though sometimes the officer will query it within the system, sometimes it's easy to make a phone call or to send a direct email. In cases where the transaction is completed, the officers will email the CG tax exemption letter to the broker or the importer, whichever email address is provided.
Stating the purpose of the exemptions requested and even quoting sections of the law applicable are useful references. The application procedure varies depending on the category of the applicant. An investor, for instance, is first required to approach the Guyana Office for Investment with their investment proposal. Once approved, an investment agreement is prepared between the investor and the Guyana government, which would include, among other things, the list of items eligible for exemption.
So earlier you mentioned that the importer or his broker must provide in Asikuda World a proper description of the good. Tell us what would constitute a proper description.
When they prepare that draft investment agreement, it comes to the GRA. The tax exemption team would peruse that document and they'll go through in detail each item to ensure that the items fall within the context of the policy of the government and the laws. Once we're satisfied with all the contents, then we write, go invest, advising them that we perused it and that we're satisfied, and we copy the Minister of Finance. From there, it will go to the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Finance will sign the agreement on behalf of the government of Guyana. And when that agreement is signed, it becomes a legal document, a legal binding document. So anything listed in that agreement will be granted exemptions from time to time when the person applies for exemption.
Most importantly, the applicant must attach a worksheet to show the list of items requested for exemption with the respective tariff codes specified in the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, HS 2017.
If you're applying for multiple items and more than one item use the same commodity code for the purpose of exemption only, and that's for application of exemption, you must group the items under that heading, that one heading. But if when you're preparing the ESAD, which is for the customs purpose for the entry of the goods, after the exemption letter has been approved, you have to give them a separate line item.
Further, the Automated System for Customs Data, ASICUDA World, is now the platform that facilitates application for tax exemptions. This modern system replaces the manual submission process done in the past.
With the implementation of ASICUDA World, a lot of the procedures have changed from the time we started granting exemptions. Now, applications are no longer accepted by hand or hard copy or by email. It has to be done within the ASICUDA World platform or the ASICUDA World system.
So what are some of the important guidelines that must be followed when someone is applying for tax exemptions in the ASICUDA system?
When you write a general letter and you don't refer to the exact category, then it's not clear to the officer, and sometimes they put the application on one side. So it's better for you to state specifically which category of exemption you're applying for. All documents attached must be clear, legible, and properly uploaded. Now, what it means is that you may scan a document, but if the scanned copy is not clear and you cannot see it, when you upload it, you must be able to open that document and see it. If it's not visible to you, it wouldn't be visible to my officers. And therefore, you could end up with queries. So it's very important that when you upload, you upload legible copies. It must be very clear.
The application is processed within approximately 3 working days, providing all the relevant documents are submitted. Failure to meet all the requirements will result in the application being queried in the ASICUDA system. Fortunately, registered users of ASICUDA are able to track the status of their applications to know whether or not it has been approved. They also have the option of contacting the Tax Exemptions Processing and Verification section for further clarifications. Notwithstanding, Mr. Lowe offers these words of advice to applicants, which can aid in fast-tracking the processing of their applications.
What we ask brokers to do on behalf of their clients are to apply in advance for an exemption letter. Do not wait until the goods are shipped and then arrive in Port Georgetown, and then you're applying for exemption. What you're doing, you're delaying the person. So when somebody orders goods from the US or from whichever country, it takes a few weeks to get here. So once you have that invoice or a quotation, for tax exemption purposes, we allow quotations and not a final invoice. The final invoice can be submitted when you're doing the ESAD, which is the customs declaration. But for tax exempt purposes, we will allow a quotation, and we'll process a declaration for exemption with a quotation. So it's very important to know that you should start application at the earliest opportunity.
The Income Tax Act requires businesses and sole traders to file income tax in advanced quarters as follows: April 1, July 1, October 1, and December 1. Totaling your records in a periodic manner helps you easily calculate your yearly income and expenditure statements, which in turn makes it easier when submitting your tax returns.
Are you into business, going to school, or planning to buy a computer or laptop? Then GRA has you covered. Computer monitors, mouse, keyboards, and many internal components of the central processing unit are zero-rated from VAT. Yes, you heard right. They attract no VAT. But wait, there is more. Computer accessories and printers for personal use, whether multifunctional or not, are also VAT zero-rated. For more information on zero-rated items, contact us. GRA, your partner in development.
Welcome back. You're watching Focus on GRA. Manufacturers can qualify for tax exemptions on raw and packaging materials by applying in writing to the Commissioner General once certain preconditions are met. Here is all the information a manufacturer will need when making the application for exemption.
In granting approval for an individual or business to be exempt from the payment of tax, conditions are laid out in a contract between the beneficiary and the Guyana Revenue Authority to ensure that the individual satisfies certain preconditions. Manufacturers, for example, must provide detailed information to the Revenue Authority about their manufactured products and the raw and packaging materials to be used in the process.
I'm joined now via telephone by Mr. Gavin Lowe, a Deputy Commissioner in Customs and also a former Senior Manager in the Tax Exemption Processing and Verification Unit. Could you provide us with some examples of the items, the raw materials, raw and packaging materials that must be submitted by an importer who is applying for tax exemption?
So let's say you're manufacturing jam, peanut butter, or whatever the case may be. So each product, let's say for the jam, what items you're going to bring in to ensure, or what you're going to utilize within Guyana to manufacture that product. Now you might bring in raw materials like the jars for the jelly, the covers might be separate, might be together, but you have to list each item and each raw material that will be used and packaging material to manufacture that product. Now, the officers will have to do a site visit to ensure that you have a place that you're going to do the manufacturing. They're going to verify that you have intention of keeping proper records when you're manufacturing. Because if you're going to utilize X amount of raw material, the end product should be consistent with the raw materials that you're using. You'll have to probably explain how many material you use to manufacture one bottle or whatever the item is or items are.
Manufacturers must be aware, however, that the preferential treatment afforded to goods of community origin automatically makes them ineligible for conditional duty exemption if they are sourced outside of the region, unless the Council for Trade and Economic Development, quoted, approves a suspension.
Some manufacturers, they require certain items, and the items may not be obtainable within the region, within CARICOM. But because it's on that list, there's a process. You have to apply to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would have to take your application and send it to CARICOM with a team called the quoted. The quoted will circulate that document, that request, to all member states, stating that Guyana wants to buy X product, and it's on the list of ineligible. Could anyone in this region supply this product? Maybe they will state the quality, the quantity, because let's say a member state, they're manufacturing the same product, but then they might not meet the specification of that item that you're requesting. So you have to state all of that. Whether they can't meet the quantity So Cotel will say, okay, Barbados can only do 20,000 per year, but you need 100,000. So we'll give you a suspension for 80,000. So you can procure 80,000 of that item extra regionally.
The manufacturer then applies to the Revenue Authority for tax exemptions on the items approved on a case-by-case basis. The Commissioner General may use his discretion to grant exemptions for a maximum of 1 year, considering factors such as the type of manufacturer and their tax compliance levels.
What we do for large manufacturers or compliant manufacturers, we give them 1 year letter. It's not automatic that you get a 1 year letter, but it's consideration based on your compliance, your level of compliance with the GRA. And when we talk about compliance with the GRA, we don't only talk about your duties that you pay. You have to be compliant with income tax. Because we are a revenue agency, we look at all taxes, right? We ask you for your NIS compliance also. Ensure that if you have workers, they are paying the NIS and the PAYE.
The verification process also entails a monthly production report by the registered manufacturer to assure the Revenue Authority that they are maximizing the exemption benefits and that it is working in their favor. The authority would also conduct post-approval inspections to verify that the manufacturer is using the items exempted solely for the purpose intended.
So what safeguard mechanism does the GRA use to ensure that these applicants or beneficiaries of tax exemptions abide by the conditions stipulated?
It must be noted that all exemptions granted are subject to post-approval verification. And what I mean by post-approval is that you're getting an exemption, you're getting a benefit. So at some point, we have a team that may visit and verify that you're using this item or these items for the intended purpose. Like if you're a manufacturer and you're bringing in a raw material or packaging material, at some point, the officers will visit to verify that you're utilizing these items, which is your raw material or packaging material, to manufacture a certain product. It doesn't give you the right now as a manufacturer to sell that item to anybody else, whether it's another manufacturer or any individual.
Still on tax exemptions, the GRA also wishes to inform fisher folks and other business operations in the fishing industry about tax relief benefits geared towards the sustainability and growth of the sector. Here is more information on how to apply for these exemptions.
Operators in the fishing industry are among the stakeholders eligible for exemptions from tax on materials imported to use in their business. The GRA therefore takes this opportunity to expound on the list of fishing materials and the particular taxes waived. The Customs Act under the first schedule, Part 3B, provides a list of fishing materials exempt from customs duty. Deputy Commissioner in Customs and former Senior Manager in the GRA's Tax Exemptions Unit, Mr. Gavin Lowe, provides examples.
Fishing boats, spare parts, equipment for fishing boats, and equipment and supplies for use in the processing plant and fishing, which the Commissioner General is satisfied are reported for use in the fish, seafood industry and aquaculture industry.
Further, there is no VAT on fish hooks, sheet leads, fishing floats, cotton and styrofoam for use in the fishing industry, ice for fishing purposes, knotted netting twine, cordage or rope made up of fishing nets and other made-up nets of textile materials. Equipment and spares imported for use in the production of goods in the fishing industry are also zero-rated. However, the Revenue Authority must be satisfied these items are imported solely for this purpose.
So let's say someone has a processing plant specific to the fisheries industry and they want to install solar panels to provide lighting for the facility. And they import these solar panels. Should they apply for tax exemptions for the panels as part of fisheries?
The answer is no. The solar system all solar items, they're granted via an ANC code. AE1 is the ANC used to exempt solar equipment, whether it's solar lights, panels, deep cycle batteries, solar generators, anything that saves energy and are contained within this section are granted both duty and VAT. The duty is granted under item 49A of the fourth schedule part 3B2 and paragraph 6A of schedule 2 of the VAT Act. So what we have done over the past years, and something that we're continuing to do, is to come up with a list of items that we do not want persons to apply for exemptions. What they do is that if an importer of these solar items imports these into Guyana, you use the ANC, which is AE1, and this will bring the two sections that I mentioned here, item 49 and paragraph 6, into operation, and it will zero the tax on the ESAD. So you don't have to apply for the tax exemption department to get this exemption.
Established fishing industries with fishing license are eligible for exemptions on items including small fishing establishments that provide evidence of their operations. Applying for the exemption in fisheries requires a written request to the Commissioner General, invoice or quotation from the supplier, TIN, and a recommendation from the fishing cooperatives in which they are involved.
The GRA wishes to remind employers that PAYE payments are due October 14. Meanwhile, VAT returns for the month of October 2021 are due October 22. Ensure you never miss a due date. Sign up for GRA's e-services. The online tax service allows you to file tax returns, view upcoming returns and payments, and send and receive secure messages.
When it comes to healthcare, we all want the best. The best hospitals, the best doctors, and the best treatment. But sometimes the best comes at a heavy cost. Well, the good news is you don't have to worry about VAT on medical, dental, hospital, optical, or paramedical services. There's also no VAT on orthopedic appliances like hearing aids or others that are implanted on the body to compensate for a defect or disability. Sounds like good news to help you feel better for the best.
I am Balwan Prasad, driver for the past 10 years. Over the years that I have been driving, I always make sure that I buckle up, I observe the 5C, and most importantly, make sure that I renew my driver's license at least 3 months before the expiration date.
Welcome back. You're watching Focus on GRA. If you've paid VAT for an item that is not supposed to attract the tax, here's how you can apply to the GRA for a refund. You may have been in a situation where you paid more for an item than the required amount. This may occur in some instances if the supplier applied VAT on the item that is supposed to be free of the tax. The good news is that consumers who may have paid value-added tax on an item that is not taxable can write to the Guyana Revenue Authority for a refund of the tax they paid. Selma Garnett, Manager of VAT Audit and Enforcement, explains how a consumer can make a claim for a refund.
In cases where VAT was incorrectly charged, non-registrants can write to the GRA and apply for such a refund. If it was incorrectly charged, if you were charged VAT on a zero-rated item, you can apply to the Revenue Authority and we will do our checks and refund that money.
It is important to have supporting evidence, like a tax or sales invoice, when writing for a VAT refund as a simple consumer or non-registrant, Ms. Garnett cautions.
The consumer to which the VAT was incorrectly charged would need to provide us with that invoice. That is basically what they need. The invoice as proof that they were charged, and we would match the information and refund where necessary.
Consumers are reminded that they should not be paying VAT on items that are classified as zero-rated or exempt. Schedule 1 of the VAT Act lists all of the zero-rated supplies, while Schedule 2 lists all of the exempt supplies. The GRA encourages consumers to educate themselves on the items that are classified as exempt and zero-rated to ensure that you are not charged VAT on these items. The full list of supplies, exempt and zero-rated for the purpose of VAT, can be found on the GRA's website, gra.gov.gy. And finally, in this week's question and answer segment, our tax specialist has answers to your questions on PAYE.
Your question in focus this week is on PAYE. It's a term that I'm sure you're familiar with, but you never really took the time to go into detail. Well, that's why I invited Ms. Carolita Edwards. She is a tax specialist from the GRA's Tax Advisory Services section, and she will be providing all the answers you need. Carolita, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Fabian.
Let's jump right in. What is PAYE?
Pay as you earn, commonly called PAYE, is the income tax which is deducted from an employee's earnings before they receive it.
And who is the person responsible for the deduction of PAYE? Is it the employee?
The responsibility lies with the employer. Therefore, the employer is required to deduct the PAYE and remit it to the Guyana Revenue Authority on the 14th of every month. And this is in keeping with the income tax regulations.
14 days. Okay, so tell me, how is pay-as-you-earn PAYE computed monthly?
When computing PAYE, the employer must ensure that they deduct the statutory allowance, which is $65,000 or 1/3, and they will have to use the greater amount. They also have to deduct the NIS contribution, which is 5% of their gross earnings, less or equal to $280,000. So, for example, if an individual is earning $300,000 per month, the 5.6 NIS should be on $280,000 and not on the $300,000. So, therefore, it means that at no point in time an individual NIS should exceed $15,680.
So for those who may be a bit baffled when you explain that the 1/3 of your gross, which is $65,000 or greater, it means that you are entitled to $65,000, nothing less. But if the 1/3 of your gross is greater than $65,000, you are allowed that greater amount. So it's either $65,000 or greater. Great, thanks for clearing that up. So tell me, what documents must be submitted when remitting the PAYE? As you mentioned, the employer is responsible when they remit that to the Guyana Revenue Authority.
The employer is required to submit a return of deduction of tax, commonly called the Form 5, and they have to do this electronically using our e-services platform. However, before they can do this, they must register for PAYE with the Guyana Revenue Authority. And it's very simple, Fabian, to do this. If it's an individual, they have to walk with their business registration that they would have obtained from the deeds registry and their ID. If it's a company, then the representative must walk with his or her ID, and they also walk along with the articles of incorporation.
Thank you very much, Carolita. And there you have it, Carolita explaining all about PAYE, when it's supposed to be deducted and remitted to the GRA, and who is responsible for doing so. In this case, the employer. If you have other questions, please contact us at the numbers listed at the end of our program.
That brings us to the end of this week's program. Visit our website for more information, gra.gov.gy. Our optimal information page is gra.gov.gy/optimal. Send us an email at grapublicrelations@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn for up-to-date tax-related information. Remember, the GRA's COVID-19 protocol is in full effect. Vaccination card and valid identification must be presented to gain access to our offices. Unvaccinated persons must make a prior appointment and produce a negative PCR test result along with a valid form of identification. This policy applies to all GRA's offices across the country. Thank you for watching. I'm Tiffny Rhodius. Stay safe, everyone.